Hi, this is Sachin. Today I am going to give presentation on ECOS and TinyOS. Here ECOS stands for Embedded Configurable Operating System. It is an open source, royalty free, real time operating system intended for embedded applications. The system is targeted at high performance small embedded systems. Such systems are embedded form of Linux or other commercial OS that would not provide streamlined software required. ECOS software has been implemented on variety of processor platforms such as Intel IA32, PowerPC, Spark, ARM, and etc. It is one of the most widely used embedded operating system. Next is ECOS configuration tool. And this figure shows the top level of the ECOS configuration tool as seen by the tool user. Each of the items on the list in the left hand window can be selected or deselected. When an item is highlighted, the lower right hand window provides a description and the upper right hand window provides a link to further documentation plus additional information about the highlighted item. Items on the list can be expanded to provide a finer grained menu of operations. This figure is ECOS configuration tool, provides kernel details, illustrates an expansion of the ECOS kernel option. In this figure, exception handling has been selected for inclusion, but symmetric multiprocessing has been omitted. Components and individual options can be selected or omitted. Individual values can be set in some cases. For example, like minimum acceptable stack size is an integer value that can be set or left to a default value. Figure shows loading an ECOS configuration. It's an overall process of creating the binary image to execute in the embedded system. This process is run on a source system such as Windows or Linux platform, and the executable image is destined to execute on a target embedded system such as sensor in an industrial environment. The first one, GNU Make utility, is to used to selectively determine which pieces of a program need to be compiled and issues the demands to and the GNU cross compiler executes on a source platform, then generates the binary executable code for the target embedded platform, and then the GNU linker links the application object code with the code generated by the ECOS configuration tool. This is a figure of layer structure of ECOS. The layers are hardware abstraction layer, kernel, input output system, standard C library, and user application code. Uh, Actually, the layered structure is used because each layer can be implemented independently. And let us see hardware abstraction layer. It is at the bottom. Hardware abstraction layer is a software that presents a consistent application programming interface to the upper layers and maps upper layer operations onto a specific hardware platform. Thus, hardware abstraction layer is different for each hardware platform. These things are already explained. And this figure is an example that demonstrates how the hardware abstraction layer hardware specific implementations for the same API call on two different platforms. This example shows the call from the upper layer to enable interrupts is the same on both platforms, but the C code implementation of the function is specific to each platform. Hardware abstraction layer is implemented as three separate modules. First one is architecture that defines the processor family type. Second one is variant, support the features of specific processor in the family. And third one is platform that extends the hardware abstraction layer support to tightly coupled peripherals like interrupt controller and timer devices. ECOS kernel was designed to satisfy four main objectives. Those are low interrupt latency, low task switching latency, small memory footprint, and deterministic behavior. Low interrupt latency is the time it takes to respond to an interrupt and begin executing an interrupt service routine. And low task switching latency is the time it takes from when thread becomes available to when actually execution begins. And small memory footprint is the memory resources for both program and data are kept to a minimum by allowing all components to configure memory as needed. And the last one is deterministic behavior is throughout all aspects of execution, the kernel's performance must be predictable and bounded to meet real-time application requirements. These things, memory allocation, device driver, and are not included in ECOS kernel. ECOS input output system, it is a framework for supporting device drivers, and a variety of drivers are available through the configuration package. The principal objective is efficiency with no unnecessary software layering. ECOS scheduler. Scheduler is used to schedule the threads, and there are two types of schedulers in ECOS. One is bitmap scheduler, and one more is multi-level queue scheduler. Bitmap scheduler is actually efficient for small number of threads activities, and each thread has a different priority. And this diagram shows the how bitmap scheduler works. Here you can see there are 32 priorities given to threads, and the thread C having the highest priority preempts the thread A, and deschedules the thread B, and it again deschedules the thread C. And the multi-level queue scheduler, it is appropriate when number of threads is dynamic. That is, when the number of threads dynamically changes, multi-level queue scheduler is efficient than bitmap scheduler. Multiple threads at each priority. Each multiple threads can have the same priority. That's what it tells. And time slicing, that is dividing the time of resources like CPU execution cycles between threads. ECOS scheduler. This diagram shows multi-level queue scheduler thread operation. Um, in multi-level queue scheduler, the multiple threads can have the same priority. As in the diagram, when a blocked thread becomes ready to run, it may preempt a thread of lower priority. As with the bitmap scheduler, a running thread may be blocked on a synchronization primitives because it is preempted or because it is relinquished control. When a thread is blocked, the scheduler must first determine if one or more threads at the same priority level as the blocked thread is ready. If so, then the scheduler chooses the one at a front end of queue. Otherwise, the scheduler looks for the next highest priority level with one or more ready threads and dispatches one of these threads. ECOS thread synchronization. ECOS kernel can be configured to include one or more of 6 different thread synchronization mechanisms. These include classic synchronization mechanisms. In classic synchronization mechanisms, mutexes, semaphores, and condition variables are there. And ECOS supports two synchronization communication mechanisms that are common in real-time systems, namely the flags and mailboxes. Finally, ECOS kernel supports spin locks, which are used in symmetric multiprocessing systems. First, we will see the classic mechanisms used for synchronization in ECOS. First one is mutex. Mutexes are used to enforce mutually exclusive access to a resource, allowing only one thread at a time to gain access. Mutex has only two states, locked and unlocked. And you know this is similar to binary semaphore. When a mutex is locked by one thread, any other thread attempting to lock the mutex is blocked. The mutex is unblocked and one of the threads blocked on this mutex is unblocked and allowed to lock the mutex and gain the access to the resource. Mutually, actually, mutex differs from binary semaphore in two respects. First, the thread that locks the mutex must be the one to unlock it, okay? And the second one is uh, mutex provides protection against priority inversion, whereas a semaphore does not. Next mechanism is classic mechanism is semaphore. ECOS kernel provides support for counting semaphores. Counting semaphore is an integer value used for signaling among threads. And the here there are two commands are used. One command is to increment the semaphore count. If the new count is less than or equal to 0, then the thread is waiting on the semaphore. And the other command function is checks the value of a semaphore count. If the count is 0, the thread calling this function will wait for the semaphore. If the count is non-zero, the count is decremented and thread continues. Next, condition variables. A condition variable is used to block a thread until a particular condition is becomes true. Condition variables are used with mutexes to allow multiple threads to access shared data. They can be used to implement monitors of the type. Condition variables are typically used in conjunction with mutexes to implement long-term waits for some condition to become true. Now we will see how the pool of resources are controlled by using mutexes. This figure defines a set of functions to control access to a pool of resources using mutex. Mutex is used to make the allocation and freeing of resources from a pool atomic. And here this command is used to log the mutex. Next, if statements is used to check for free resource and return value result none if none. And this command is used and this command is used to unlock the mutex. And this function resource underscore free is used to free the resource. And the first statement in this function log the mutex, and these two statements free the resource, and the last command unlock the mutex after freeing the resources. This figure shows controlling access to a pool of resources using mutexes and condition variables. This figure accomplishes with the use of a condition variable associated with the mutex. And resource underscore allocate detects this command detects there are no resources. It calls the command coij underscore condition underscore wait. This function unlocks the mutex and puts the calling thread to sleep on the condition variable. When resource underscore free this function is called, it puts a resource back into the pool and calls coij underscore condition underscore signal command to wake up any thread waiting on the condition variable. When the waiting thread eventually gets to run again, it will relog the mutex before returning from coij underscore condition underscore wait command. If that is not the case, then we call resource underscore free function. This function by we call resource underscore free function by some thread that would release the resource, but the call coij underscore condition underscore signal would be lost and the first thread would end up waiting and there are resources available. The important characteristics of TinyOS is it is non-blocking. So there are few explicit synchronization primitives. TinyOS requires 4 bytes of code. It is not a real operating system. There is no kernel, there are no processes, and the OS does not have memory allocation system. And interrupt and exception handling is dependent on the peripheral. This figure shows a typically wireless sensor network topology. A base station connects to a sensor network to a host PC and passes on sensor data over a corporate network or internet to an analysis server, and individual sensors collect data and transmit these to the base station. Routing functionality is needed to determine how to relay the data through the sensor network to the base station. In many applications, the user will want to be able to quickly deploy a large number of local devices without having to configure or manage them. That means they must be capable of assembling themselves into an ad hoc network. The mobility of individual sensors and the presence of RF interference means that the network will have to be capable of reconfiguring itself in a matter of seconds. Now we see the goals of TinyOS. It allows high concurrency, operate with limited resources, and adapt to the hardware evolution, and supports a wide range of applications, and also supports a diverse set of platforms, and it is a robust. The TinyOS components are single hop networking, ad hoc routing, power management, times, and non-volatile storage control. All components in a TinyOS configuration have the same structure. Example is shown in the figure. The shaded box in the diagram indicates the component which is treated as an object that can only be accessed by a defined interface indicated by white boxes. The component may be hardware or software. Software components are implemented in C, which is an extension of C with two distinguished features: programming model where components interact via interfaces, and an event-based concurrency model with run to completion task and interrupt handler, those explained subsequently. Software component implements one or more tasks. Each task in a component is similar to a thread in ordinary OS with certain limitations. Within a component, tasks are atomic. Once a task started, it runs to completion. It can't be preempted by any other task in the same component, and there is no time slicing. Commands are non-blocking requests. There is a task that issues a command does not block or spin wait for a reply from the lower level component. A command is typically a request for the lower level component to perform some services such as initiating a sensor reading. The effect on the computer that receives the command is specific to the command given and the task required to satisfy the command. Generally, when a command is received, a task is scheduled for later execution because the command cannot preempt the current running task. The command returns immediately to the calling component. At a later time, an event will signal completion to the calling component. This command does not cause a preemption in the called component and does not cause blocking in the calling component. Events in TinyOS Events in TinyOS be tied either directly or indirectly to hardware events. The lowest level software components interface directly to hardware interrupts, which may be external interrupts, timer events, and counter events. This figure is timer C configuration. The uppercase C stands for component. It is used to distinguish between an interface, that is a timer, and a component that provides interface, that is timer C. The uppercase M stands for module. This naming convention is used when a single logical component has both a configuration and a module. The timer C component providing the timer interface is a configuration that links its implementation to clock and LED providers. Otherwise, any user of timer C would have to explicitly wire its subcomponents. This is an TinyOS scheduler. The TinyOS scheduler operates across all components and only one task executes at one time, and it uses simple FIFO queue technique and scheduler is power aware, that is puts processor to sleep when no task is queued. This is an surge. It is an application of TinyOS. Choose a configuration assembled from software and hardware components. This simplified called surge, and it performs periodic sensor sampling and uses ad hoc multi-hop routing over the wireless network to deliver samples to the base station. The upper part of the figure shows the components of surge and the interfaces by which they are wired. The surge component is the application level component that orchestrates the operation of the configuration. This figure shows top level search configuration. The following simplified experts from SurgeM specifications. This example is illustrates the strength of the TinyOS approach. The software is organized as an interconnected set of simple modules, each of which defines one or few tasks. Components have simple standardized interfaces to other components, be they hardware or software. Thus, components can easily be replaced. Components can be hardware or software. TinyOS resource interface. TinyOS provides a simple but powerful set of conventions for dealing with resources, dedicated, virtualized, and shared. This figure shows simplified view of shared resource configuration used to provide access to an underlying resource. Associated with each resource to be shared is an arbiter component. The arbiter enforces a policy that enables a client to log the resource, use it, and then release the resource. The shared resource configuration provides the following interfaces to a client: resource, resource request, resource configure, and resource specific interfaces. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.